Cody, you can call me Jon Snow because I know nothing. Christian Gokel alongside Cody Queen, Cam Ursery, and Southern Brit here. You listened to the show yesterday.
That's ultimate, like, coming into the show. Like,
Yeah, call me Jon Snow because I know nothing. Yeah, it's bad. I have nothing intelligent to say about the Hawks and the Bucks. Everything I've said has been wrong. So I am just gonna defer to the expert.
Britt, why are you over there shaking your head? Like,
look at Cam's
big dog in
smile.
Yeah.
He's just smiling ear to ear. He's pumped.
Like I'm happy, I'm happy about it, but I am like, when you're like you were taking a class in high school, say math for me, right? And it's just like the first time you don't get it, you're like, listen, I didn't really study. It's fine. If I actually actually put some effort into it, I can get it. Then you study and you still don't get it, and then you get tutored and you still don't get it, and then like the teacher's like, listen, stay behind, I'm going to help, and you still don't get it. That's where I'm at right now. Like I have nothing valuable to offer. I thought the Hawks, this would be like you'd win a couple games, probably losing 6 because the Bucks were really good. You don't really have anything for Giannis, and then Trae Young gets hurt, and I'm like, listen, Trae Young's out. There's not really you don't really stand a chance, right? The Hawks, and I know a lot of people say they won last night because Giannis got hurt. When Giannis got hurt, the Hawks were up 7 points.
Yep.
And they never trailed in that game. Lou Williams, Sweet Lou, Lemon Pepper Lou.
Lemon Pepper Lou.
Lemon Pepper Lou starting, giving you 20 points, right? What were we saying yesterday? If Trae Young's out, Mr. I want a max deal John Collins is going to have to step up. He scored 4 points.
Yeah.
Well, what I said yesterday, if Trae does not play, they're getting smoked. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So again,
Quote.
and I'll say this because I'm not the only one, right? I'm not the only one. All these so-called experts, and I'm not taking a shot, I'm just saying, all these so-called experts, if you say you know anything about what's going to happen in the NBA playoffs right now, you're lying. Straight up. No one knows. None of the matchups have made sense. None of the results have made sense. None of the storylines, no one predicted any of this, right? And what's the storyline becoming now? And this is, again, if I was a betting man, I would have been real wrong last night. If I was a betting man, I'd say whoever comes out of the Western Conference is going to decimate whoever comes out of the Eastern Conference. I'll probably be sitting here a month from now being like, wow, I can't believe an Eastern Conference team won an NBA Finals, right? I mean, that's just where I'm at. Cam, I mean, is there anything you can garner from watching these games? Like, I know we've talked about how the Knicks tried to hit Trae Young with a high trap, and then they started getting with the high pick and roll, and so you've seen the adjustments off that. But, I mean, is there anything from watching the game last night that lends you to believe you know anything about what's going to happen in Game 5?
No. It's a toss-up. I stand by what I said, though. Hawks in 7. I do like that. I do believe that, especially after what happened last night. I hope Giannis gets better, but I don't think he'll be back. Even if he does, I still like the Hawks. But the game plan was right. And somebody said yesterday to me on Twitter, the healthiest team will win the finals this year. Not necessarily the best team, but the team that's the most healthy and has their best players playing, that's who's going to win. But great game plan by the Hawks last night. Cam Reddish, huge, good team effort. Cam Reddish was a defensive monster on Chris Middleton. Kind of flushed him out the game for the time that he was in the game. It was good to watch. It was a good defensive game plan.
Yeah, no, Kongu was solid again. I want to talk about him in a second. I do want to talk about the game, but I want to talk about this, and I don't want to talk bad about a guy who got injured. But prior to that, what was going on with Giannis at the line? Right, the fans, the Hawks fans have been doing the counting where they just like in unison scream 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Was it 3 air balls last night, Cam?
I think it was like
throws?
3. Yeah. It's the inconsistency with Giannis.
But the people who haven't watched the Bucks until now, explain to them what's going on with that.
Oh, you're talking about the counting?
Yeah.
Counting down? He takes forever to shoot free throws. I don't know. It's a psychological thing. Against Brooklyn, he had 2 air balls. I want to say in game 6, he had 2 air balls, and then now 2 to 3 last night. Won the game before. It's psychological, and it's kind of like Ben Simmons. It's just kind of like him as well. So I loved it. I loved it that he was airballing and looking out of sorts. But They have a chance. I was smiling last night. I was smiling. They have a chance.
And what's crazy is we could see a game 5 without Trae Young or Giannis. If that happens, I have to think the Hawks are considered the favorites there, right? I think the Hawks without Trae Young are a better team than the Bucks without Giannis.
Nah, I still think the Bucks are a better team.
Really?
Because they're a better team because they have an all-star Chris Middleton, former all-star Drew Holiday, two guys that are pretty good defenders as well.
But is Chris Middleton without Giannis?
Actually, yeah, last year in the bubble, when Giannis got hurt, that one game they won against the Heat, Chris Middleton had 30-something points in the game winner. And they actually played better without Giannis last year. But he's still an all-star, but I believe the Hawks will win because of what we saw last night. That defensive game plan was really, really good by Nate McMillan. Putting Capella on Giannis and John Collins on Brook Lopez, kind of taking John Collins out of the way from foul trouble. It was a good game plan from the jump.
I was going to say with the Nate McMillan thing, it seemed like they were a way better coached team last night. They spread the ball around tremendously better than the Bucks did. They had 4 or 5 guys scoring in double digits. They weren't scoring a whole bunch each, but dude, everybody got their hands on the ball. Everybody was making buckets. They weren't missing that much. I thought Nate McMillan freaking killed it.
I was going to ask that. I mean, it seems like the offense flow. I want to be really careful when I say this. It seemed like it flowed better than it had in the past couple of games because it seemed like Trae Young, the offense had become, we're going to give Trae Young the opportunity to run up the court. He's either going to take the shot or hit a lob, and then if that doesn't work, we'll kick out, right? It became like an ISO game with Trae Young. Last night, everybody had to touch the ball. If Trae Young does come back, is that something, Cam, you think they try to continue to do, is not maybe have the ball in his hands as much?
Yeah, they should do that. It's just play as a collective unit because you have a nice unit around you, shooters and everything like that. And they drew up some good plays last night. But also you had Lou be efficient. He was 7 and 9. I think people forget he's a future Hall of Famer, not first ballot, but he's a future Hall of Famer. So, but they spread the ball around and they got to continue that if they want to beat the Bucks.
And so we've seen an absurd amount of injuries in these playoffs.
I was just about to chime in and say, how have we not talked about that excruciating injury?
Well, I mean, you had Kyrie Irving go out, James Harden went out. I mean, just all kinds of superstars. And that's been the weird thing is it's really afflicted the top 20 players in the NBA playoffs, right? That's who's been hit the hardest with this. We see Trae Young go out in the last game, and now Giannis goes out with what we're hoping is just a hyperextended knees. I know some people on Twitter have speculated, and like verified reporters have speculated that the biggest fear right now from the Bucks is that he tore an ACL, but they're waiting for an MRI result for that. But either way, it doesn't seem like he's going to be back for game 5, maybe not for the rest of the series, but just how absurd has this been, this entire playoff run, to see all of these superstars get hurt?
Right. As you said, those verified reporters were saying that it didn't look so hot, and today he has an MRI. But him along with every other player in the playoffs, they're getting injured left and right. And it goes back to what Cam was saying a couple days ago. It's going to be, and today, it's going to be whoever is the healthiest team. And that is going to be the person that takes a dub. The team that takes a dub is whoever has the most healthy players on their team. Doesn't have to be the best team, the best coaching. You just gotta be healthy. So I don't know. There's no predictions on my end because it's just going to be whoever comes up head to head and has teammates who actually can play the game at 100%. Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked him. I mean, we don't know. We haven't really got an update on Trae Young yet, right? I mean, if you WebMD it, bone bruises can keep you out anywhere from a week to months, right? So we don't know when Trae Young's going to be back. And I know Southern and Ben were talking about tough it out. Southern's over here talking about doing backflips with meniscus tears. But to me, that's such a finesse position, of finesse sport, especially when you're planting off of that ankle, which is probably where that bone bruise is on his foot. When you're having to plant off that to hit shots, I think that can be pretty significant. So I just right now you can't assume that Trae Young is going to be back. You can't assume that Giannis is going to be back. So going forward, who do you think wins this series, Cam, if both of those guys are out?
I'll take the Hawks. I'll take my chances with the Hawks because Cam Reddish has emerged. He has the potential of an all-star. People forget that. He was the number 2 player coming out of high school, went to Duke, was ahead of Zion coming out of high school. So he has that potential. Lou Will, Sweet Lou, He's out there producing. And Bogdanovich, he actually showed up last night. Bogey showed up. So if he can show up and give you what he gave you last night, about 6 of 14 from the three, and Capella, he's always going to show up and do his thing. I'll take the Hawks. I'll take my chances with them.
How significant do you think being on the road is? Because we see it all the time where bench players come off as heroes when you're at home, but it seems like that goes away a little bit on the road. And so if a guy like Lou Williams has to be the glue guy and has to run the offense for you, right? If you're counting on Gallinari to come off the bench against the Bucks, if you're counting on Kongwu to come off the bench against the Bucks, how big is this factor going to be that you have to play Game 5 on the road?
It's big, but I'm not too worried because if you look at the Hawks' track record in this playoffs, most of the wins are on the road. They haven't won a lot at home. They split at home and win most of their games on the road. Philly, they won 3 of the 4 games on the road. If they can win Game 5, I think it's over. I think the Hawks will come back home and close it out in 6, but it's a big game for both teams. Really big for the Bucks. Hawks have no pressure. All the pressure's on the Bucks right now.
So here's the postseason injuries. I just saw a tweet. So you got Murray, Conley, Jaylen Brown, Davis, James, Paul, Embiid, Irvin, Harden, Mitchell, Leonard, Young, and now Giannis. Those are all just postseason injuries.
Wow.
Those
They're
are
all superstars.
Yep,
And
all superstars.
And then, I mean, if I know a lot of people are saying, look, you're playing a sport. It's your job. Go out there and play it. But I think a lot of this has to do with a shortened off season where these guys have a lot of wear and tear on them, especially the teams that made those deep playoff runs last year. I think really affecting those teams right now, and certainly the players, because, I mean, star players play a lot, right? They're going to play more minutes than anybody else. I think that's got to be a significant factor as to why we're seeing so many injuries. Stuff like Giannis and with Trae Young, freak accidents, right?
Yeah.
You come down on your knee the wrong way and you step on an official's foot. But some of the other ones just seem like wear and tear injuries to
Mitchell,
me.
Murray, and all that, yeah.
They seem like wear and tear injuries to me. So we got to take a quick break here, though. We spoke to the Carey brothers yesterday. That interview got cut short. We're going to have them on again coming up here in a couple segments. We'll come back. Got some college football talk to dive into, and also an important holiday today that we'll discuss when we come back as well, right here on Second Down. Got a big show coming up today on 3 and Out. We'll catch up with Anthony Trace, our good friend from PFF. They recently released their preseason All-American. Some interesting Georgia players on there. Just a little spoiler for you. Eric Gilbert on there as a second-team wide receiver, according to PFF. So we'll catch up with Anthony Trace about that. Of course, according to Cody, Anthony Trace, the wide receiver for Georgia and also the LSU transfer to Florida.
That's him. Yep. What's wrong with that?
So we'll catch up with Anthony Trace about that. We'll also catch up with Rob Stockton, Georgia Southern Hall of Famer, well over 300 tackles in his career for the Eagles. Also the defensive coordinator at Raven County. And you say Stockton. Why do I know that name? He's also the father of Georgia commit Gunnar Stockton, 4-star out of Raven County there. We'll catch up with Rob coming up a little bit later on 3 and Out. But some news from yesterday, guys. We talked about it. Kyle Pitts gets a 4-year, $32.9 million fully guaranteed contract, $21 million signing bonus in there as well. Cody, I want to ask you, Greg Olson had an interesting quote. He said, quote, "We have to do the same bleep that a $15 million left tackle has to do and run the same routes against the same guy that a $15 million wide receiver has to run routes against, and they're going to pay us $7 million. Greg Olson, right? Are we underpaying tight ends?
The upper echelon tight ends, yes, but there's only about 4 or 5 of those these days in the NFL that really do that. 90% of them are either just blocking tight ends or 10%.
Gronk, Kelsey, Kittle,
Darren Waller.
Waller.
That's about it, yeah. And then the next one they have up on a Pro Bowl this year was TJ Hawkinson. He only got like 600 yards receiving. Yeah. So I get he's speaking for the upper echelon guys. Yes, I think the upper echelon guys are underpaid, but the rest of them, they're not skilled as much as the top 5 tight ends in the league compared to the number 6 tight end in the league. It's just like college football in the rankings. The top 4 are immensely better than the rest of them. You know what I mean? Like it's a super huge jump
big drop off. Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson to Darren Waller. You know what I mean? It's a huge jump. So I get what he's saying. The top ones maybe, but it's kind of like the rest of the league. All other 28 of them starting tight ends are kind of dragging it down. That's the reason why they're Greg Olson. But also, the running backs were on Twitter saying, "Hey, dude, we get to do all this, that, this, and that, and we only last and we get beat up the most."
Yeah, I think an average for a starting running back in the NFL, their career 3 years.
And nowadays, they're not getting paid much anymore as they used to. Since Zeke got paid, and that was about it. The last real good rookie contract that they had was Saquon Barkley.
You know where I stand on running backs in the
third
NFL?
rounds, man.
You know where I stand on running backs in the NFL, but I don't want Sean Quinn to call in here and berate me because he thinks I hate running backs. But you know where I stand on running backs in the NFL. Another thing I wanted to talk about here, this is according to Heather Dinich and ESPN's FPI. Quick pop quiz for you kids here.
Pop it.
All right? Pop quiz, hot shot. Only 2 conferences have ever put 2 teams into a college football playoff. Which conferences and what years?
SEC 2017.
2017, Georgia and Alabama. Who's the other conference?
Other conference was
definitely
Southern's pretending like she's doing something else.
See,
I'm trying to.
That'd be the ACC last year. Clemson and Notre Dame. Clemson has a 2 seed.
Notre Dame
has a
not.
Notre Dame.
They were in the conference.
Notre Dame's been
Clemson's
independent
conference championship
forever.
game, y'all.
oh
My jaw
gosh.
just hit the floor.
Yeah, Clemson and Notre Dame. But according to Heather Dinich and ESPN's FPI, one conference has the best chance to get 2 teams into the college football playoff this year. If you had to guess, which one is it?
Big 12.
Cody?
A college football playoff?
Yeah, which team or which conference has the best chance to get 2 teams?
SEC, I'm an SEC guy. Gotcha.
Southern?
I'm going to say SEC.
You would think that, but Cam nailed it. According to Heather Dinich and ESPN's FPI, if this scenario happens, they have the best chance to get 2 in. They say the Big 12 can get Iowa State and Oklahoma in. 2 teams that will be ranked somewhere in the top 7, depending on any poll that you read. They say Iowa State would have to beat Oklahoma during the regular season, And then Oklahoma would have to beat Iowa State in the conference championship game, and both teams would have to go undefeated in all their other games. And you can flip-flop that if you want to. OU wins the regular season game. Iowa State wins the conference championship game. I think that gives them the best chance. According to ESPN's FPI, if that happens, there's a 74% chance that both teams make the college football playoff, which is an absurd number, right? So if OU wins in the regular season, goes undefeated, and loses in the conference championship game to a one-loss Iowa State, they can get both teams in. One of them has a conference champ, one of them has a one-loss Oklahoma that had been undefeated up to that point. So that's who they think it is. And I think most people would say it's probably the SEC, right? Because you think, well, you get Georgia, and LSU, Cody saying LSU. You get Georgia or Alabama. I don't think that's the most likely scenario in which the SEC gets two teams, because Georgia's schedule is bookended by two of the top two teams in the country, Clemson and Alabama.
Yep.
Right. There's a very distinct possibility that Georgia loses to Clemson and loses to Alabama, sitting there at 11-2 and get left out. Right. They would not get in with two losses. We have not seen a two-loss team get in thus far. I think the more realistic possibility is that Texas A&M loses to Alabama but wins out, doesn't get a chance to play in the conference championship game because Alabama would have won the SEC West. And then you have, say, an undefeated Alabama going there. I think Texas A&M could get in as an at-large.
Well, I don't know. With the Iowa State thing, once you brought that up, with Brock Purdy out there, I think it's – I get it.
I get it. Running back, too, and he's a pretty damn good running back.
I get it, but I am on your side with the SEC. I think Texas A&M is going to be good, but I am on the LSU train this year. But if I am being realistic – it's going to be Georgia and Alabama. I think Georgia, I said this a million times this year, I think Georgia is going to be a freaking powerhouse. I think they're going to win first game against Clemson. I think they're going to win not by much, maybe by a point. I think it's going to be one hell of a shootout with DJ out there. But Georgia, just like we had multiple Georgia players on so far saying it is championship or bust. It is championship.
Yeah, Chris
or bust
Burnett
for
was
them.
on earlier this week, and he said it's a failure if you're not in the SEC championship.
It is their time to shine.
Yeah.
If you're not picking Georgia this year to be in a top four, then you're not really watching. You know what I mean? They have the team this year.
I don't know, man, but they've had the team a few times before too. Like you haven't necessarily had what we think is going to be a good offense. Again, we haven't seen this offense be great yet. We've talked about this earlier this week. We've seen this offense be pretty good against some bad teams, and then be okay against a good team in Cincinnati, right? They're very okay against Cincinnati. We have not seen this offense be elite in a huge game, right? They got Stetson was at quarterback, but they got smoked by Alabama in the second half.
Boy alone.
In the second half, right? We haven't seen this offense be elite against a good team yet. But if that works out, then I think Georgia's clearly a top four team. But BJ says this all the time. If you get beat by Alabama and by Clemson and you have two losses, you're not one or two, but that doesn't mean you're not number three. But for whatever reason inside college football, two losses is a death sentence. You're not getting into the college football playoff. So I think that's an interesting take from Heather Dinich there that, listen, it might be the Big 12. Now, I think the Big 12 is going to Big 12. I think Oklahoma will lose a stupid one. I think Iowa State will definitely lose a stupid one. Iowa State got beat at the beginning of the year last year by Louisiana.
Yeah, they did.
So and if we're being realistic, Oklahoma probably wins both of those games against Iowa State by double digits. We saw it last year. So it's an interesting possibility, but not a very distinct one. But I mean, again, best chance to get one in, because who else would have a great chance? Maybe North Carolina goes undefeated, loses to Clemson, because they'd have a win over Notre Dame.
Dang.
I always underestimate Notre Dame. But somehow, Notre Dame.
They have a pretty brutal schedule coming up this year, though, replacing their all-time winningest quarterback. I mean, it's true. They've been one of those teams that's like outside of Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State. They're the ones that's right there in the college football playoff discussion every year. That being said, I think they probably take a step back this year because they have a really difficult schedule.
Well, I'm looking at Iowa State's schedule in the first place because, this is a big thing with the strength of schedule. So they got Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and then they play Texas. Besides that, they'll play Oklahoma State. They got Kansas on there.
They got to play Kansas. That's a
Northern Iowa, like UNLV, they do have
hey, go,
like they don't have the strongest
Put some
schedule.
respect on UNLV.
So you're right with the whole entire Iowa State thing. They would have to go undefeated. Like there's no way. Like they don't have a strong enough schedule to be like, hey,
Yeah.
we lost to Oklahoma.
Something interesting about Oklahoma's schedule. Anybody
Yeah.
know where Oklahoma opens? Don't look it up because I know you love to look up everything. Anybody know where Oklahoma opens the season this year?
Jerry World.
No.
Dang it.
It's a good guess.
Yeah, I was going to say Jerry World. They usually do. I don't know.
They're actually going to be playing one of your dad's former players coming up to open the season. They play at Tulane.
Oh,
They
really?
play at Tulane,
At
the
Tulane.
Wave.
The
Wave.
The Wave.
Oklahoma Sooners will be playing at Tulane to open this. I want to know who at Tulane had dirt on somebody at Oklahoma to get that game.
Money, baby. Pay me.
Because Oklahoma is one of those 10 teams where you don't play home and homes against non-power 5 schools, right? You don't do it. It's like Miami playing at App State a few years back. It's just one of those weird. I think Miami did one of those, like, we'll give you a 2-for-1. You come here twice and we'll go up there once. But it's Oklahoma opens at Tulane to start the season. It's I think the first time they've opened with a true road game since 2012.
Oh, wow.
For Oklahoma. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch there. All right, quickly here before we go to break, because again, we have the Carey brothers coming up again here in about 5 minutes. Today is International Asteroid Day, a very important holiday for everyone, I would think. But my question to you is this. If there is a world-ending apocalyptic asteroid headed towards Earth, which scenario makes more sense for you? I'm just curious. Training astronauts how to drill and then set off a nuclear bomb on the asteroid, or training oil rig workers how to be astronauts and sending them to space to drill and set off a nuclear bomb. Which scenario makes more sense for you?
It's science. If Ben Affleck can do it, dude, then anybody can do it. So you got to make oil riggers
I need 3 things.
erase their debt.
I need 3 things.
Okay.
I need Bruce Willis.
Yes.
I need Ben Affleck.
Yes, you do.
And I need a sweet, sweet classic rock song.
It's true.
And I can take this asteroid out.
It's true.
I mean, Cam, which scenario to you makes more sense?
I'll go with the second one.
Oh, training oil rig workers to be astronauts.
Yeah.
Because Southern, you can do that. You can do that in like 3 weeks. You can get them ready to roll as astronauts.
Y'all are talking crazy talk.
Do you have any idea what we're talking about?
What?
Do you have any idea what we're talking
Armageddon?
about?
Have you seen Armageddon?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Thank you
I just
very much.
Just
Thank
wanted to make
you.
sure we were on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still saying the astronauts. We're gonna
So you watch
The verse
Armageddon and it's just
astronauts.
ruined for you the entire time because you're like, this
listen.
is dumb?
I'm still thinking logically.
I need some West Texas Roughnecks going up there, give them a couple freaking kegs of Busch Light,
They're
and
good.
they're good, baby. They're good. You don't need to pack no water. That's just gonna take up the time.
Are you
from the bush.
gonna get like the vacuum sealed Busch Light so like the molecules don't go everywhere and
Yes.
cause an explosion inside
Yes,
the
you
space
got
station?
to. Yep. It has like a little funnel so you can just
There you go.
done, dude. That's all it is. Get some West Texas boys out there, or some Louisiana boys out there, working on them rigs, and put them on the rock, and give them some nukes.
How long do you think before we see the Armageddon remake?
Please don't ever
it's
do
been
that.
about 20
don't
years.
do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's gonna be with like Chris Helmsworth or something like that. Don't do that.
Hemsworth?
Yeah, Hemsworth.
Nailed it. We got to take a
Yep.
quick break. We'll come back. Stefan and Chris Carey joining us next here on Second Down. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Cam Urshery, Christian Gokel, Cody Queen, and Southern Brit hanging out with you here on a Wednesday afternoon. Really excited to talk to these guys again. We had them on yesterday. Interview got cut a little bit short, but we're back at it. We're going to try this one all over again. Stefan and Chris Carey joining us on the program. Guys, how are you today?
We're doing great. Sorry about that yesterday.
Listen, if anyone on here knows about spotty internet, it's Cam. So we're not going to hold that against anybody. But we had the conversation yesterday talking about your guys. For those who weren't listening yesterday, the lineage of the Careys, Skip, Chip, and Harry, these guys come from that. And obviously, was it ever an option for you guys to be like cooks or to go into like pottery or something like that? Or was it just always going to be broadcasting? Not again, guys. Come on.
A great answer. Yep.
You guys with us? Well, I don't think they like us, Cody. I'm gonna give you the phone number, Cody. We're gonna
hello.
We're gonna try it again.
Yeah, we're in good Wi-Fi here. I don't know what the deal is.
Well, it should just be a phone. But the question I asked was, was there ever an option for you guys not to be broadcasters, or what? Could you have been a chef? Could you have gone into like architecture, or was it always broadcasting?
So for me, it was weird. I was a lacrosse player in college before I transferred to Georgia. So I had aspirations to go be involved in that game at some capacity, and just didn't work out. So when I joined forces with Chris at Georgia, that was kind of the route that we wanted to attack.
And Chris, I want to ask you, man, it's like we talked about yesterday. I know everybody looks at the CV and they see all the impressive stuff that you've done at school. But the first thing I have to imagine most people ask you about are your family members. But how are you trying to carve out your own role inside of broadcasting?
Well, it's funny you ask that. When I started talking to my dad about this, and I actually went to school kind of close to where you guys were at my first year and broadcast at Valdosta State. When I just started, I was yearning, begging for my dad to give me any type of advice whatsoever. And he just wouldn't do it. And I was always confused for the first 2-3 years that I did it, why he didn't want to help me at all. And he's always told us, if I help you and I start telling you how to do your own broadcast, you're going to sound just like me. You're never going to be able to survive in this climate. Because if you sound just like me, then you don't have any originality. And that's what sets good broadcasters apart from great broadcasters. And that really stuck with me. So now Steph and I, identical twins, we sound very similar on the air because, vocally, genetic, but we bring our own creative spins on it. He's a little bit more off the cuff, comedic. He's very quick, fast. I'm more analytical, research oriented. And when it comes together, we feel like it's a great combination.
Well, Stefan, I want to ask you, I know we talked about this on 3 and Out. Marv Albert's retiring, 80 years old, broadcasting for NBC for forever, but his last assignment is going to be these Eastern Conference Finals between the Hawks and the Bucks. And for me, growing up, he's one of those voices I associate with his sport. There's guys like Vern Lundquist and Dave Neal, where if I think college football, those are the voices that come to me. Who are some guys that you have listened to growing up that you are now, I don't want to say trying to emulate, but you've taken notes from?
Well, I think it's definitely the greats that always come to mind. Joe Buck, I know people have sort of mixed opinions on him, but he does a really, really difficult job. I think his ability to come into a game and not show a ton of bias is incredibly important for our job. My dad used to work with Dave Niehaus, who was a legend in Seattle before he passed away. He was a big icon for me growing up in the broadcasting world. Of course, I'm going to say my dad, but that goes without saying. Dan McLaughlin for the St. Louis Cardinals is another name that really comes to mind. He's one of the funniest guys I've been around in this industry. Just very much, would joke with me as a kid when the Cardinals would come into town. He used the old line from the Karate Kid. You got to attack every day with 3 words: sweep the leg. So I always emulated him and his comedic ability on air. So something like that. Those guys really were people that I wanted to emulate and follow in my broadcasting career.
All right, guys, I got a question for both of you guys. You guys are young in this new career you guys are starting. So far, what is your favorite thing that you guys have done each?
Oh, well, this is Chris here, just to make sure that you know which one's talking. Favorite thing that I've done in my career so far. Well, this Cape Cod League internship, to be able to do it with my brother, has been nothing short of amazing. I mean, this is the best league, amateur league in the world, with the best college players coming for 2 or 3 weeks before they get drafted, and then more good players come in. And, you know, there's some high-level broadcasters, and there's been very little representation from the University of Georgia. I think we're the first 2 play-by-play guys ever from the school to do that. And there were a lot of teams that offered us, and it took us by surprise. My dad didn't know what it was. Nobody really knew what it was. And some teams wanted to separate us, and then the Katuitt Kettleers were so kind to put us together. And it's an experience like no other, being able to work alongside my brother every day. So that's got to be mine. Yeah, and I think to piggyback on what he said, I agree wholeheartedly about the Cape. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, our ability to connect with the community. And, I mean, the other day we had a young boy, 12 years old, totally blind. And he said that his favorite part of coming to the ballpark was listening to us broadcast the games, because that was his only way to understand the game that was being played in front of him. To be able to have that kind of impact is something that I can't even describe. It's so surreal. And to even be able to come here, it felt like we weren't going to get to go to the Cape. My dad was like, you guys just need to enjoy your summer. You're 21 years old. You're going into your senior year of college. Just go kick back, have a good time at home in St. Augustine, Florida. But then Tom Glavine, a Massachusetts guy, convinced him and said they have to go to the Cape. So to answer your question, coming here and doing this internship is by far my favorite thing that I've ever done in this industry.
I wanted to ask you, because I'm always interested to get different perspectives on this, and I think this is something that could be better answered by someone starting out in the business versus someone that's been there. A lot of people say what we're doing right now, radio, is on its way out. And though the numbers don't really indicate that, because people are listening specifically to sports talk more than they ever have before, as you're coming up through school and as you're getting out into the markets, how do you see the role of radio continuing in the future?
Well, let's just start it off this way. Anybody that thinks radio is on its way out needs a lesson in how important radio is to so many different people. I think that radio is such an amazing thing, and it's a completely different art form than doing a TV broadcast. We're fortunate enough to do a TV stream broadcast, and then on the roads go onto the radio. And for people on the radio, they're just so incredibly talented. Their articulation is perfect. Their storytelling abilities are fantastic. And I think that that's something that anybody would be lucky to get a job in radio baseball broadcasting, because they value your talent more than the other political stuff, whether it's the look or the nepotism argument. And I know that we've had to face that a lot. You have direct talent, and you are the exact voice for somebody who can't see the game going on. And you guys, what you do every single day is you provide joy every afternoon, morning, day, prepare stuff like that for people that have a little bit of time on their hands and want to be informed. So I don't think that radio is on the way out. In fact, I think it's evolving so much so that we don't even know what it's going to look like over the next 10, 20 years.
Oh, I didn't know if we had anything else there. No, I was going to say what those guys do in baseball broadcasts. TV is a little bit different because the viewer can be kind of overwhelmed with graphics and they can show replays and stuff like that. I know your dad does a TV side, but how impressed have you been with guys like Ben Ingram and the Don Suttons of the past, with their ability to sit there for 9-inning games, 162 games a year, and try to keep a conversation lively through games that can sometimes be 9-1 and your team's getting blown out, but you still have to do the broadcast?
Well, what I can say is Ben Ingram is a class act all the way through. Jim Powell, another one of those examples, always been extremely nice to my brother and me. And just to be able to describe the game at the pace that they do. The thing about radio, and my dad always said it best, my dad actually enjoys doing radio quite a bit because it's the play-by-play guy's job. He's the star of the show. He has to describe the game essentially to somebody that can't see it. So you have to be so much more descriptive, so able, read the play quickly, use so many more action verbs. And that's the thing about radio. Ben Ingram has burst onto the scene, and not even to mention Joe Simpson, who is like a grandfather figure to me forever, has stepped up into that role. He'll do play-by-play from time to time, but just the talent that those guys have. Jonathan Chadwick, the executive producer of the Braves Radio Network, a great friend of my dad's. They're just wonderful people, and they do an excellent job. One of the best in the business. if you're asking me.
Man, if you need a basket for all those names you just dropped, let me know.
Yeah, it was quite a few names, but it does tell you that it is a small operation. You know, you've got Ben and you've got Joe Simpson, you've got Jonathan Chadwick, but really what comes together is this. I don't know, this mix of talent, different personalities. You have to remember, like you said, weaving in and out of conversation is so hard because you have to describe what pitch, the mile per hour, the way that it fades away from the strike zone. You're literally the seeing guide of who is listening to you, and they have to be able to paint that picture while also, like you said, making a timely conversation, which at times is incredibly hard. And there have been some tough times this season, to say the least.
All right. Guys, this is Southern here. Great talking with you. I love hearing y'all's stories and your passion for the game and for broadcasting in particular. But as brothers, I'm curious to hear how the team aspect, the broadcasting aspect is as twins, being color and play-by-play. What is that like to be right by your brother and be able to broadcast games like you are right now?
Well, first off, Southern, thank you for reaching out. I think the last time I saw you, we were covering a high school soccer game together. So it's good to hear your voice again. Glad you're at a cool spot. And it's definitely different. You know, a lot of these guys on the Cape and in these broadcast booths are with people that they've never met before. He and I obviously have known each other our entire lives. And, you know, we split the game up 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, 1 inning. So I'll take the first and second. He'll take the third and fourth. I'll take the fifth and sixth. He'll take seventh and eighth, and I'll take ninth. The key word that I like to use is nonverbal communication, and sometimes it's a little bit aggressive. So we'll write things down on each other's scorebook if there's something that we're missing. We'll point to things on the field to help remind the other.
No, you're talking about you're telepathic, right? You guys can hear each other's thoughts.
You know, I know him too well. I don't know if I want to get inside that head, if I'm being completely honest.
No, you guys can hear each other's thoughts. I mean, it's okay. We this is a safe space. You can say that here, guys. We are up against clock here, but we really appreciate the time. We'd love to have you guys on again in the future. Just fascinated, really, from your stories and hearing what it's like coming up in the job that you guys are doing. Just fantastic work. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Again, Stefan and Chris Carey joining us here on the show. And I know I'll be talking to you guys in the future, asking you to come on as you're covering much bigger teams than you are right now. I really appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we hope to join you again. You know, if you ever want to talk more about anything off the air, feel free. We loved it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, we got to take a quick break here. We'll come back. More Second Down on the way. Big show coming up today on 3 and Out. We'll catch up with our good friend Anthony Trace from PFF. They put out their preseason All-Americans, 5 Georgia players on the list. He also had a bold take, Cam. If De'Aaron King is healthy, Miami can take down Alabama, according to Anthony Trace.
Heck no. No.
All right, so
Oh,
that's the breakdown you come here
Now,
for.
if my
Heck
boy Anthony
no.
Trace is catching balls for UGA and Florida,
I think
I'm
Anthony
the
Trace
same.
might be all of like 5'8", 150 pounds soaking wet. I don't know that he's going to help out with that. Also going to catch up with Austin Finnegar. Used to be a Miami wide receiver, now an agent who's getting into the NCAA name, image, and likeness marketing side. So we'll catch up with him because coming up tomorrow, it's going to be legal for players to profit off of their name, image, and likeness in the state of Georgia. So we'll catch up with Austin about that. Also catch up with Kyle Lugs from the Savannah Bananas, formerly the 2016 Region 3 5A Pitcher of the Year for Richmond Hill. We'll catch up with him coming up, and also Rob Stockton, Georgia Southern Hall of Famer, now the DC at Rayburn County, coming up a little bit later as well. 3 and Out coming up next.